In this video, I'm going to roast a $50 million construction company, and I'm going to show you some of the reasons why they messed up. So let me share my screen and let's get into it immediately, because it's good to see what happens when you do things correct, but I think it's very useful for businesses and fresh YouTubers, specifically YouTube enterprises, to see what happens when things don't go the right way. Okay, so this is a 50 million construction company, right? They've got 47 videos, 800 subscribers. So here's everything that is wrong and how to fix it. Okay, so let's break down the category first. They're a construction general contractor based in Atlanta, Georgia, and things are not good. Things are not good. So a large general contractor in Atlanta does $50 million plus in annual revenue, which is a lot of money, guys, right? They have a professional video crew, 47 published videos, which is good, and 800 subscribers. Okay, better than 10, better than 0. And this video is a forensic breakdown of what actually has gone wrong, okay? So we know they got 50 mil, 800, 3 critical errors are costing them their growth, okay? And clear CTAs across all 47 videos. So why would a company or a channel, let's call it that, why would any of their videos not have any conversion, right? They seem to be doing something right, revenue-wise, right? Business is great, looks like. Thumbs up. But there's something afoot. Something is not correct here. So, especially if you've got a professional crew, and I've seen this in the past working with some clients, not all, but some bigger corporate ones. They tend to do things in a very corporate way, okay? They think because they've got budget, they should look a certain way and do things in a certain way. And I remember one instance, there was a viral moment, and this gentleman, can't say the product, but he was pushing a particular product and he was getting a lot of views. I'm talking like millions of views every single TikTok that he did. Very recognizable, people just love the guy, right? They just love everything about him. Anyway, I suggested to the client, I said, hey, look, we should really jump on this trend. It's a product that is literally the same thing that you're selling. And if we jump on it now, or even reach out to him, we could get something to happen here. Crickets. Day goes by. Hey, have we got authorization to do that? Still nothing. And as these things happen and time passes, you realize that you're just wasting opportunities. And it's because corporations sometimes want to do things too corporate, and it actually stops, progression and innovation from happening. When there's lightning in a bottle, you've got to grab it and release it, right? You've got to catch it. So that's what happens there. So they're filming for their ego, not their client. So in some of the other videos, if you watch, I break down some of the things that companies do right, okay? But in this particular case, $50 million a year, they're like, hey, we're making $50 million a year, so we'll make the content that we want to make. But that isn't the content that's actually going to convert and get them results, aka money, right? Or clients. So no CTAs, or the wrong content types entirely, meaning you're not doing the right format. So if you're a construction company, immediately what comes to my mind is, okay, you've got a mixed bag of staff members, right? You've got different characters. You could kind of make a show of some kind, which kind of follows the journeys and the day-to-day ins and outs of like the construction manager, right? The foreman, right? Whoever the roles are. I don't know. I'm not familiar with all construction types, but you get what I mean. And there's going to be characters in those fields specifically. And that's what people buy into. So you got to think, if the audience is bought into those specific characters, they want to then see what happens next week on the show. It's just like a TV format, right? There's always a cliffhanger. And the reason for the cliffhanger is because they want to get you to come back and watch the next episode and the next episode and the next episode. But doing the wrong content types, like, I don't know, showing how cement is made. No one really cares about that unless you are a builder or someone who's literally looking to learn more about cement. But if you're a construction company, you want to be showing like Who's working on the project, right? What projects have you done before? What happened? What were the pitfalls? What were the things that you learned? Like informative type content that's actually going to engage people. So these are some of the things that they probably did wrong and the reason why, they were struggling in that particular sense. Okay. Now, if a $50 million company makes these mistakes, then what are you doing wrong? Okay. So think about it like this. The money doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to gravitate to the content. It doesn't mean that. Let me say that again. The money that you're making doesn't necessarily mean people are going to gravitate to the content. You could have no revenue, but have a great story, have something that is compelling in those videos that draw people in. Okay. It's very easy to do that with, say, entertainment content, because that's what people are essentially, there to get. It's entertainment. When it's educational or value driven, let's say, you've got to find creative ways to actually get your message across. Okay. But being too corporate, making content for yourself instead of the customer or the audience member, that's where these companies are going to go wrong. And you cannot just throw money at the situation, which you might have experienced that in your business. You might have had team members who say, hey, we're just going to chuck money in ads, or we're just going to throw money in some PR campaign, and realize 3 months down the line that it did nothing for you, right? There was no gain from you doing that specific campaign. And the reason being is because, you're doing things for your own ego. You're not doing things with the customer in mind. And now it doesn't matter the industry, it doesn't matter the age, like people are consuming content in all manner of ways, okay, and on different platforms. So you got to think, our desired customer is going to be on one of these platforms. Whether they're just scrolling, whether they're just, getting entertainment, they're going to be on these platforms. So we got to make content that makes sense for each particular platform, if that's our campaign. But in this case, we're talking about YouTube enterprise. You want to make videos that's actually going to captivate people's attention. And with that $50 million of annual revenue, I'm sure with the right creative strategy, you could actually make some great content, because you've got infrastructure, you've got trucks, you've got a lot of props. I think of it as like TV and film. Okay. So a construction company like that in Atlanta, weather's decent, very nice, good setting, good backdrop. You've got sets, you've got trucks, you've got lorries, you've got material, you've got staff, right? You've got buildings, you've got so many moving parts. That's what actually captivates people's attention. That is what is going to engage, your potential customers and make you stand out from the construction company who's doing YouTube tutorials with a janky camera and 480 quality on the actual settings on the video, and it's just not great, right? It looks dated, it just looks unprofessional, and it doesn't scream we're a $50 million a year company doing well and know what we're doing with content. And that's the caveat there, right? Think about it like this. The revenue is great, but when someone sees a video, they're just seeing a video. It doesn't necessarily mean, they are going to be wowed by the 50 mil. Like, you've still got to earn the click. You've still got to earn the eyeballs for the duration of the video. So it has to be good. And competition is getting steeper and steeper, right? So you've got to now make videos even better. Like I myself on my channel, I try and switch up the different formats, mainly to, keep myself engaged as a creator. But I'm also testing, I'm also trying, I'm not scared to, try a different style or try a different format or do some acting or a skit, right? I'm not scared to try these things, because when you try and attempt some different formats, one, there's the learning process. So you're going to see, that didn't work, or didn't really resonate with what I'm trying to do, or I don't think that would benefit my desired audience, right? So you learn these things and you get feedback in real time, but you've got to test quickly and you've got to test often. And then once you find the formats that work, then you just run with them, right? Until it's time to maybe switch it up again. Or the competition's changed, or other people in your sector have done things and they're copying you, whatever. It doesn't really matter. The point is, you cannot be afraid to actually try different formats. So let's break down the metrics here. Videos published, okay, it was 47 videos over 2 years, and 12 months in, recommendation was 12 target videos, because those 47 videos just basically did nothing. Yes, they got 800 subscribers, but they might have just been passing people. There's no steady growth that's actually happening, and that's what you want. Average views per video, 310, and the benchmark for that sector is, say 8,000 plus. And like I said earlier, right, if you really think about the format, think about the assets that you have within the business. What can you leverage? What kind of storylines could you come up with the things that you have in your business? You should be getting a lot more views than that. And those views don't necessarily mean converted clients, but you're going to get at least enough of a reach to then maybe convert 200, 300 those people into potential customers. Okay, CTA is present across all videos. 0 clear calls to action. Okay, there might not have been, hey, join our email list and we do discounts on cement, right? Whatever it is. Every video needs one specific CTA. You don't have to have lots and lots unless you're playing an SEO game and you're trying to obviously grow your channel a lot faster. But as more established channels come into the fold, they tend to have less links or less information in the description, because they have an audience pretty much that way. They don't need to do all that SEO stuff because their channel is compounding and the retention is compounding. Okay, content focus on client problems, 4% of the videos. So you see, they was making too much. 96% of their videos was about some other stuff. 4% actually focused on client problems. Case in point, client problems, not company problems, client problems. People care about what can you do for them, right? The recommendation would, of course, be 80% of the content to be solving things for the client and focusing on the client problems. Why contractors go over budget, okay? How does a contractor going over budget affect the client, right? Client requests, extra things that we've done for our clients. Think about the customer first. I always just think of Jeff Bezos when I think of customers and product. Now, it's like kind of ingrained in my mind where I'm like, what would this be like for the customer? Am I putting the customer first with this piece of content? Is the customer, the client, going to benefit from whatever it is that I'm doing here? Is it for me or is it for the customer? You just got to think of the customer at all times and obsess over them, right? And projected monthly leads with fix, less than 1 from YouTube. That's not great. You want more leads than that, bro. At least more than 1, right? Estimating 8 to 14 qualified inquiries. And if you're getting that, every other video, that's going to be bringing in decent amount of money, especially if you're doing local targeting, right? Local areas, you focus on that. That would be great for you. But again, a construction client is probably going to be, I don't know, 6 figures, right? It's going to be 6 figures type of business, maybe 7 figures, depends on the business, depends on the target audience, the ICP, right? It really does depend, but you should be looking to get more than that for that type of business, especially if you're doing $50 million a year in annual revenue. So to summarize here, the breakthrough moment, they had $50 million revenue business, full production team, 800 subscribers. This is what happens when you make content about yourself instead of content for your client, okay? But it is fixable in 90 days. As I said, you could start to think, all right, let's go back to the drawing board here and think, like, we've got the stats, we know what we did wrong. How do we go from here? Well, first of all, you might need to hire someone like myself, a creative strategist, someone who builds enterprise software specifically to help you manage all of the content, track all of the metrics, and make sure that you're running a tight ship. And obviously someone who's creative as well. That really does help. Because once you have somebody from the outside of your business coming in, they start to nitpick at things that you might not have seen. These are things what I would like to call in your blind spots, right? And you need people on your team who can check those blind spots to let you know, like, hey, look, I think we could do it this way. If we did it this way, it might be a better fit. We might get a better result. You need someone also that is, of course, going to push you to try new things. We see the stats. It's like, okay, that doesn't work. So let's do something else. And when you do something else, believe me, you start to see results, and then you're like, I just didn't think about it like that. So it does help to work with other people. So if you do want to work with, a creative strategist who has worked with 10-figure a month clients before, then drop me a call, drop a book a demo, should I say, link in the description, and we can have a conversation. I'll walk you through the first party software, and it'll basically show you how I manage my business and manage for other clients with a centralized system, right? Centralized system. And we keep rolling out new features that are beneficial for our clients every day. Not every week, not every month, every day, working on this software, okay? So I hope that video gave you some insights. I hope that it's helped you think about things in a different way. Not from everything is great, they just did these things and then, eureka moment. No, this is like a situation where a company was making a lot of money, but they still had problems. They didn't have the right systems, the right strategy in place. And with a few tweaks, a few guidance points, you can actually turn that around. So thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you on the next one.